Hey YouTube, this is Colin once again. I'm continuing with my book review of Robert Spencer, and we're delving into chapter 2, which is entitled Islam, Religion of Intolerance. Now, Spencer in this chapter focuses mainly on the idea of dhimmitude, or the dhimmis, who were living under the Islamic empires. Specifically, Jews, Christians, and then Zoroastrians later on were included. And Spencer explains that the Dhimma, and he quotes the Quran, chapter 9, verse 33, to explain why Jews and Christians were dhimmis. And what's ironic about him choosing this particular chapter and verse is that the verse quoted literally has nothing to do with Jews and Christians. Verse 33, from my translation, says, "It is he who hath sent his messenger with guidance in the religion of truth, to prevail it over all religion, even though the pagans may detest it." So, again, Spencer, in his commentary of this verse, is saying that Islam is to conquer all religions. But this verse is actually uh, strictly targeting the pagan ideology, not the Jews or the Christians. The religion of truth, meaning worshiping one God, which the Jews and the Christians already prescribe to. So it's kind of interesting how Spencer uses verses that are directed towards one group and changes it to fit another group. But he goes on to say, he goes on to quote uh, an agreement written by the Christians on page 49. And I'm going to quote what Spencer puts, what he in turn quotes from another source. He quotes, this is the Christians making a pledge to Umar, the second caliph, where they say, "We made a condition on ourselves that we will neither erect in our areas a monastery, church, or sanctuary for a monk, nor restore any place of worship that needs restoration, nor use any of them for the purpose of enmity against Muslims." So the Christians are writing this for themselves. Notice the language. We made a condition on ourselves. Okay? This does not specify that the Muslims put this agreement on the Christians. These are the Christians saying, quote, "We made a condition on ourselves." And the condition continues on. "We will not prevent any of our fellows from embracing Islam if they choose to do so. We will respect Muslims, move from a place we sit if they choose to sit in them. We will not imitate their clothing, caps, turbans, sandals, hairstyles, speech, nicknames, and title names, or ride on saddles, hang swords on the shoulders, collect weapons of any kind, or carry those weapons. We will not encrypt on stamps in Arabic or sell liquor. We will have the front of our hair cut, wear our customary clothes wherever we are, wear belts around our waist, refrain from erecting crosses on the outside of our churches and demonstrating them on our books in public in Muslim fairways and markets. We will not sound the bells in our churches except discreetly, or raise our voices while reciting our holy books inside our churches in the presence of Muslims." Now, on a personal note, I don't agree with all of this, okay? On a historical level, however, I must say that out of a lot of subjugated people, this treatment is not as harsh as treatment done by, let's say, Charlemagne, where he gave the pagan Saxons, two choices: convert or die. And I mean, not even Charlemagne. I mean, historically, when another civilization conquered another, most of the people were exterminated, and we see that throughout history. But this sort of subjugation is not as harsh as, in my opinion, as other people who subjugated others. Um, on page 51, Spencer quotes from Sharia law, which is harsher than what I just read to you. So this is modern Sharia law, and yet this is not the same conditions as Umar's time. And so this does not reflect the opinions of all Muslims. This is an enhancing of this idea in the modern era, which I don't agree with myself. Uh, but then Spencer quotes on page 53 Theodosius, the emperor of Byzantium, who actually has something positive to say. He says that the Muslims are actually respectful towards us, and let us keep our religion. But then he quotes one historian who says something negative, and another historian about who only references two caliphs, by the way. So I don't know how this. Yeah, I think Spencer's trying to generalize here. Page 54, another negative historian and an eyewitness to the sacking of Constantinople. Now, my question is, if a Christian who witnessed the sacking of Constantinople, are they actually going to say anything positive about the people who just took control of their capital? I mean, to me, that's a very biased historical eyewitness, but that's the way some of these things go. Page 53 to 56, Spencer discusses random historians and their opinions on the Dhimma. And then page 51, Spencer quotes a historian saying that the Jews under Muslim Dhimma were worse than in Europe. And I don't understand how he comes to that conclusion. In Europe, the Jews were persecuted. In the First Crusade, before the Crusaders actually entered the Holy Land, they did a little pit stop on the Rhine River and massacred many villages of Jews living in the Rhine River, killing these people, which was very wrong. And that was their first pit stop on the way to the Holy Land. And then he gives examples of popes who actually stopped the subjugating of Jews, which that's great. I mean, I'm happy to see that he's quoting those people, but yet he lacks to mention much hostility that the Europeans did to each other and that the Europeans did to the Jews, etc. And I'm not trying to paint a dark picture of humanity. I mean, us as humans, we subjugate each other all the time, but to say that this is just strictly Islam is very arrogant, very ignorant, and very biased. And not true of history, by the way. Did the Muslims subjugate people? Of course, but people are making it sound like the Muslims were unique in this, creating empires. Every culture, every civilization has created an empire and has subjugated other people. So essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quote some historians of my own. Spencer quotes these historians that paint a negative picture, but I'm actually going to quote a historian named Francis Peters, who observed that conquest destroyed little. What they did suppress were imperial rivalries and sectarian bloodletting among the newly subjugated population. The Muslims tolerated Christianity, but they de-established it. Henceforth, Christian life in literature, its endowments, politics, and theology would be a private, not a public affair. By an exquisite irony, Islam reduced the status of Christians to that which the Christians had earlier thrust upon the Jews, with one difference. The reduction in Christian status was merely judicial. It was unaccompanied by either systematic persecution or bloodlust, and generally, though not everywhere and at all times, unmarred by vexatious behavior. So this historian says the Muslims treated the Christians great. And then we see, actually, let's see here. This is a French political philosopher, Jean Bodin, who, quote, said, "The king of the Turks, who rules over the great part of Europe, safeguards the rights of religion as well as any prince in this world. Yet, he constrains no one, but on the contrary permits everyone to live as his conscience dictates. What is more, even in his Seraglio at Pera, he permits the practice of 4 diverse religions, that of the Jews, the Christians, accordingly to the Roman Rite, and according to the Greek Rite, and that of Islam." So here we have a contemporary of the Ottoman Empire saying that the Ottoman Turks treat their minorities with great respect. So, Spencer can quote his historians, I can quote mine, he can quote his eyewitnesses, I can quote mine, we can go on and on and on. The point of this chapter is that to say that Islam is an intolerant religion, I really would like to see other people of other faiths look into the history of their faith and acknowledge times of intolerance. I'm in no way saying that I agree with subjugating others. Not by any means. But I think to just label Islam as intolerant and move on is very ignorant, and we should all do ourselves a favor and look at all of our faiths and see the history and see how people in power have subjugated others and used their religion as a tool to do that, which we see many people in the modern era doing today. But thank you very much for tuning in. This is Chapter 4 of Robert Spencer's book. I will be continuing with his chapters. And thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and your ratings. And thank you very much. Peace be with you all. This is Colin signing out.